I told Gump to leave me, forget me, remove yourself. Did you hear me? Forrest Gump is still revered for its heartfelt stories and memorable moments. Behind its iconic scenes and captivating performances are many stories that deepen our understanding of the film. Forrest Gump is full of fascinating trivia, from the real-life inspiration behind Forrest's epic cross-country run to the creative decisions that shaped its most memorable lines and sequences. Especially notable is Forrest Gump's huge blooper that nobody noticed until now. Unpacking is extensive, so let's begin. Number 20. Lieutenant Dan's handicap. Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump is memorable. Actor Gary Sinise. Dan loses his legs in Vietnam, but how did they show it on screen? Visual effects were crucial to this technical achievement. CGI was used in a novel way to portray Sinise as a double amputee. While wheelchair-bound, Sinise wore blue fabric around his legs, allowing the visual effects team to digitally erase them. Lieutenant Dan appeared to have lost his legs, which enhanced the emotional impact of his character's struggles and transformation throughout the film. Gary Sinise's portrayal of Lieutenant Dan, a soldier struggling to find meaning in life after his injury, was well received. Sinise's acting and special effects created a visually and emotionally convincing performance. The character's journey from bitter and broken to peace is one of Forrest Gump's most powerful elements. We're just scratching the surface. Much more came from that. Forrest Gump is known for using digital imagery and creative editing to insert its title character into 20th century history. Elvis Presley, a young man, stays at Forrest's house and learns dance moves. Peter Dobson played Elvis, including his hip-shaking moves, but not his voice. Kurt Russell narrated instead. Russell appeared in John Carpenter's 1979 biopic Elvis, which helped launch his career. Russell recorded new lines for Forrest Gump that were seamlessly blended into the scene to make it appear as if young Forrest was influencing Elvis's hip-swinging dance style. The cameo, which was kept secret for over a decade, pays homage to history and Russell's relationship with the King. Russell said in 2016, 12 years after the film's release, that Robert Zemeckis asked him to do the cameo because the original voice track wasn't good. Russell told GQ how Zemeckis asked for help, and he agreed, but he didn't know if the other actors knew about the change. The irony that Russell voiced Elvis in Forrest Gump, but not Elvis, made the situation even more intriguing. In the biopic, Ronnie McDowell sang. The cameo was kept a secret, which is nearly impossible in the internet age of spoilers. One of the film's most notable elements is its blend of fiction and history, allowing viewers to see U.S. history through an ordinary but extraordinary character. Reality and fiction collide in Forrest's meeting with Kennedy. After making the All-America team, Forrest meets JFK at the White House in the film. This event is inaccurate because the Associated Press announced its All-America team 2 weeks after Kennedy's assassination, on December 6, 1963. Under these conditions, Forrest could not have met JFK. Despite this inconsistency, the scene is narratively significant. The film offers a playful reimagining of history by juxtaposing Forrest's fictional achievements against a significant historical event. Forrest Gump blends whimsy with reality to emphasize its fantastical yet touching theme of an unlikely hero whose life intersects with major cultural and political milestones. Even though Forrest's journey is fictional, the audience is captivated by the seamless integration of these key moments into his life. Next one may seem unimportant, but it has a deeper meaning. One of Forrest Gump's most famous scenes features the bench. This simple fiberglass bench in Chippewa Square, Savannah, Georgia, became a movie prop legend. Forrest, Tom Hanks, spent most of the film telling strangers at the bus stop about his extraordinary life on this bench. Behind the scenes, the location was chosen for its beauty, and the bench was the focal point of many film scenes. The production team placed the bench on the north side of Chippewa Square, with Forrest facing Bull Street for the perfect scenes. Savannah police had to reverse traffic around the square to film Forrest being picked up by a bus, ensuring the scene met the filmmaker's vision. Multiple shots of Forrest's reflective monologues were shot on 4 identical benches. One of these benches was donated to Savannah and placed in the Savannah History Museum after filming. This bench has drawn many visitors who want to see where Forrest told his stories. The bench is behind protective barriers, but fans can admire it up close and take a Forrest Gump film tour, which includes a visit to the famous square where the scenes were shot. The remaining 3 benches are valuable collector's items whose whereabouts are unknown. Like Judy Garland's ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz, these props have sold for astronomical amounts. Though simple, the bench has been immortalized in film and fans' hearts worldwide. 16. Jimmy Carter's heat exhaustion. Are you familiar with Forrest's 3-year U.S. tour? One small detail you may have missed. Forrest sprints past a small-town barbershop and hears a TV news report about President Jimmy Carter's heat exhaustion. Forrest is drawn to this real-life event on September 15, 1979, adding historical context to his unpredictable journey. The movie's playful history causes discrepancies. Forrest begins his epic run on July 5, 1976, before Jimmy Carter became president in January 1977, according to the film. Since Carter wasn't president when Forrest began his run, this is inconsistent. This timeline blending was done to insert Forrest into important historical events to show his unintended but significant impact. Another secret behind-the-scenes fact follows. Number 15. Brutal shooting. Tom Hanks discussed the physical and mental toll of filming Forrest Gump at a New Yorker Live panel. Forrest running across the country, one of the film's most iconic and emotional scenes, was difficult. Hanks explained that this montage required more than filming a few key moments in one location. To capture the true beauty of different landscapes, the production team had to travel across the U.S. As expected, this increased workload. Hanks did this for 27 days, getting into costume, running for hours in different parts of the country, and then flying to the next location. These cross-country scenes were physically demanding because they required constant movement and little rest. The endless running sequences exhausted Hanks. The demanding running scenes left him exhausted for other important parts of the film, including the dialogue-heavy park bench sequences. These crucial scenes of Forrest's movie were shot in a day and a half. Hanks said he was exhausted after filming these scenes, which were crucial to the film. He struggled to focus on the endless dialogue he had to deliver. Did you notice his Southern accent in his speech? 14. Hanks had to perfect his Southern accent to convey Forrest's Alabama roots. Instead of dialect coaching, Hanks modeled his accent after Michael Connor Humphreys, the young actor who played Forrest's childhood self. Mississippi native Humphreys had a soft Southern drawl, which Hanks carefully imitated. This unified the character's voice in youth and adulthood. Hanks and Humphreys' accent work helped the film succeed. Hanks's accent work earned him an Academy Award for Best Actor and critical acclaim. Michael Connor Humphreys won a Young Artist Award for playing young Forrest. His Southern accent and natural portrayal of the character's early years set the stage for Hanks's iconic performance. 13. Without pay, Tom Hanks negotiated for a percentage of the 1994 blockbuster's profits instead of a salary. This choice reflected Forrest's intuitive financial foresight throughout the film. Film was risky at the time. The production team and Hanks believed it could succeed, but no one could have predicted its monumentality. Forrest Gump reached $678 million worldwide, making it one of the year's highest-grossing films. The movie exceeded expectations, and Hanks profited from his percentage points deal. He earned around $65 million during its box office run, far more than a standard salary. 12. One of the film's most notable supporting characters is Mykelti Williamson's Bubba Blue. Bubba, known for his distinctive speech and large bottom lip, was crucial to Forrest's shrimp business and Vietnam War service. Williamson did not naturally have Bubba's iconic look, especially his protruding lower lip. To achieve Bubba's characteristic appearance, the filmmakers used a prosthetic lip that gave his mouth a distinct, exaggerated shape. This prosthetic was laborious to make. The team wanted to make sure that Bubba's lips looked natural and believable, blending seamlessly with Williamson's face. Once the prosthetic was finalized, it worked so well that many people didn't realize it was fake. Mykelti Williamson's portrayal of Bubba, with his soft-spoken voice and obsession with shrimp, became a beloved part of the film, adding depth to Forrest's story. Despite the prosthetic lip, Williamson's performance shined through, making Bubba a memorable and endearing character whose brief yet impactful role left a lasting impression on audiences. The fictional Bubba Gump Shrimp Company in the film, which Forrest establishes to fulfill his friend Bubba's dream, has an interesting real-world counterpart. After the film's massive success, Paramount Pictures and the Rusty Pelican Restaurant Company capitalized on the iconic shrimping storyline by launching a chain of restaurants named Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Since opening its first location in 1996 in Monterey, California, the restaurant chain has expanded globally, boasting over 43 locations in several countries. These restaurants offer seafood dishes, often with shrimp as a featured ingredient, and immerse guests in a Forrest Gump movie-themed experience, incorporating memorabilia and references from the film. Plus, in a curious twist of fate, actor Chris Pratt was discovered working at a Bubba Gump shrimp restaurant in Maui, Hawaii, in the year 2000 before his rise to Hollywood stardom. His outgoing and humorous personality, while serving customers, caught the attention of a director who would later give him his first acting job. Now on to the more serious details. Number 10. The war scenes. Did you know that the war scenes in Forrest Gump, depicting Forrest's time in Vietnam, were actually filmed on a golf course in South Carolina? But wait, golf courses don't look like jungles now, do they? Extensive use of CGI played a crucial role in creating the dense jungle environment necessary for the scenes. This digital enhancement helped simulate the lush, overgrown vegetation, typical of the Vietnam jungle, to further enhance the tropical look and make the setting appear more authentic. Additional palmetto trees were brought in to augment the existing landscape. By combining practical effects with CGI and additional props, the filmmakers successfully transported audiences to the heart of Vietnam, despite the setting's unconventional origins. Two islands off the South Carolina coast, Fripp Island and Hunting Island State Park, were the primary locations for these scenes. Number 9. Stand in the Schoolhouse Door. Beyond the Vietnam War, the film weaves Forrest into the backdrop of pivotal moments in American history. One such event is the integration at the University of Alabama, a powerful moment in the civil rights movement. In 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace infamously attempted to block two black students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, from enrolling. The film depicts Forrest as a football player at the university during this time. He witnesses Wallace's stand in the schoolhouse door as he symbolically attempted to prevent desegregation. In reality, this incident was a direct challenge to federal desegregation laws, and President John F. Kennedy sent federal troops to ensure that the students were admitted safely, much like how Forrest observes in the movie. The real incident involving Governor George Wallace's stand at the University of Alabama occurred on June 11, 1963, and was a key moment in the struggle for civil rights in the United States. In the early 1960s, the civil rights movement was pushing for the desegregation of public institutions and the protection of voting rights for Black Americans. The University of Alabama, like many other public institutions in the South, was racially segregated. Governor George Wallace, a staunch proponent of segregation, attempted to block the enrollment of two black students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, at the University of Alabama. He also positioned himself physically in the doorway of the university's registration office, declaring his intention to prevent the students from entering. This act was intended to defy the federal court order that mandated the desegregation of the university. The standoff did not last long. President John F. Kennedy, committed to enforcing desegregation laws, responded to Wallace's defiance by sending in federal troops. The federal intervention was critical to ensuring the enforcement of the court order. U.S. Deputy Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach, who was sent by the president, confronted Wallace and demanded that he step aside to allow the students to enroll. In a televised address that evening, President Kennedy condemned Wallace's actions and reinforced the federal government's commitment to upholding civil rights laws. Wallace eventually backed down, and Malone and Hood were able to enroll at the university with federal protection. Number 8. The original Vietnam War sequences. In the original script of Forrest Gump, the Vietnam War scenes took a darker turn, reflecting a real but now discontinued military practice. The script initially depicted every member of Forrest and Bubba's platoon as having low IQs, a nod to the historical reality where soldiers with below-average intelligence were allowed to enlist during the Vietnam War. These individuals were often grouped together in the same platoon. This practice was intended to minimize potential issues by consolidating those with similar capabilities, though it was ultimately seen as a problematic approach. The U.S. Army, concerned about how this portrayal might affect their image, objected to this representation. Consequently, the film was revised to depict only Forrest and Bubba as being mentally challenged, while the rest of their platoon was shown as average soldiers. Despite this adjustment, Forrest Gump received a commendation for its depiction of the Vietnam War from military historian Bill Allison. Allison highlighted the film's surprising accuracy in portraying the chaotic and perilous nature of the war. He focused particularly on an ambush scene where Forrest rescues Bubba, noting that ambushes were a common tactic used by the Viet Cong to avoid direct confrontation and maintain concealment. Allison pointed out that the film's representation of such ambushes aligns with historical accounts, where American and ARVN soldiers often faced unseen enemies in dense, challenging environments. Additionally, the film accurately reflected other elements of the Vietnam War. For instance, the heavy rains experienced in Vietnam were portrayed realistically. The term humping, used in the film, was indeed a common military slang for walking or marching during the war. However, while Forrest Gump managed to capture some of the realities of war, it did so with a certain degree of lightness that detracted from the grim and prolonged nature of the conflict. The Vietnam War, the longest in U.S. history, was fraught with uncertainty and disillusionment, with many soldiers questioning the purpose of their involvement. Now, let's reveal a huge behind-the-scenes detail you never knew about. Number 7, taking the kids to work. In the memorable scene from Forrest Gump, where young Forrest boards the school bus, he faces rejection from 2 children before Jenny offers him a seat. What adds an interesting layer to this scene is that these 2 children weren't professional actors. The boy who turns Forrest away is Alexander Zemeckis, the son of director Robert Zemeckis. The girl who similarly rejects him is Elizabeth Hanks, the daughter of Tom Hanks. The scene is significant, as it highlights a pivotal moment in Forrest's early life. On his first day of school, Jenny's act of kindness, offering Forrest the seat next to her, marks the beginning of a profound friendship. Forrest later reflects on this moment with deep affection, describing Jenny as like an angel and noting that he had never seen anything so beautiful in his life. Their bond, described as being like peas and carrots by Forrest, becomes a central theme in the story. Jenny helps Forrest navigate the challenges of childhood, teaching him to read and climb trees. Jenny's role in Forrest's life is particularly poignant, given her own difficult background. Her mother passed away when she was young, leaving her in the care of an abusive widowed father. Jenny's home life was marred by abuse, which made her friendship with Forrest all the more significant. For Jenny, her time with Forrest provided a sanctuary from her troubled home, offering a glimpse of normalcy and support amid her hardship. Did you know that Tom Hanks was not the original choice for the iconic role of Forrest Gump? Initially, actors such as John Travolta, Bill Murray, and Chevy Chase were offered the part, but ultimately declined. John Travolta, in particular, has since expressed regret over his decision. In a 2007 interview with MTV, Travolta reflected on turning down roles like the one in Forrest Gump, acknowledging that while he felt good about the alternative career paths he pursued, he still looked back with some regret. Similarly, the role of Bubba, which ultimately went to Mickelty Williamson, was also offered to several other actors. Among those considered were David Alan Grier, Ice Cube, and Dave Chappelle. Ice Cube in particular felt uneasy about portraying a character with a disability, and decided against it. Dave Chappelle, who later admitted to underestimating the film's potential success, turned down the role due to concerns about perpetuating racial stereotypes that he feared might negatively impact his career. David Alan Grier later expressed regret over missing out on the opportunity, discussing it in a 2018 appearance on Busy Phillips' show, Busy Tonight. Ice Cube, who was balancing his acting career with his music career at the time, also reportedly regretted passing on the film after it achieved remarkable success. The role of Jenny Curran was another part with an interesting casting history. Jodie Foster, Nicole Kidman, and Demi Moore were all considered before Robin Wright ultimately took on the role. Wright's portrayal earned her both Golden Globe and SAG nominations, showcasing her remarkable contribution to the film. Lastly, Kevin Bacon was initially considered for the role of Lieutenant Dan before it was offered to Gary Sinise, allowing him to bring a memorable and impactful performance to the character. Number 5. Tom Hanks funded the run. Forrest Gump's iconic cross-country run stretches over 7 memorable minutes, however, almost didn't make it into the film due to budgetary constraints. According to Tom Hanks in an interview on In Depth with Graham Benzinger, Paramount Pictures, the studio behind the film, was reluctant to finance the ambitious run sequence because of its high cost. Director Robert Zemeckis, however, felt strongly that the run was an essential component of the movie and was determined to include it. Faced with the studio's refusal, Zemeckis turned to Hanks for help. Hanks revealed that Zemeckis approached him with a proposal. They had both split the amount that was needed to do the sequence. Hanks agreed to this arrangement. He and Zemeckis personally financed the run in exchange for a greater share of the film's profits. The investment paid off, resulting in one of the film's most memorable sequences. In this segment, Gump, after experiencing a personal loss and reflecting on his life, spontaneously decides to run across America. This journey, which he begins for no particular reason, captivates the nation, with people joining him and even adopting slogans inspired by his run, like the famous "Shit Happens" logo and smiley face t-shirt. The run culminates with a bearded and long-haired Gump halting in the middle of a road, telling his followers, "I'm pretty tired. I think I'll go home now." The feather scene in Forrest Gump is one of the film's most iconic and symbolically rich moments. Contrary to popular belief, the feather's mesmerizing flight was not created using CGI. Instead, the filmmakers used a real feather, which was filmed against a blue screen. Various flights of the feather were captured and then digitally combined to achieve the smooth, flowing movement seen on screen. This method, while intricate, provided a more organic look compared to what might have been achieved with CGI. The feather first appears in the film's opening sequence, floating gently through the air before it alights at Forrest's feet. Forrest picks it up and places it in his suitcase, which signifies the beginning of the film.